President of the Philippines, Rodrigo Roa Duterte.
I, Maria Leonor Gerona Robredo, having been appointed to the position of Chair.
You've heard it all. Don't smoke, drink in moderation, eat healthy, and exercise regularly. But did you know that stress can also take a huge toll on your immune system? Mindfulness is about being present and noticing what's happening in your mind and body. Here's one way to do it. First, pause and focus on your body. Notice what you see, hear, taste, and smell. Next, focus your attention on what you feel on each part of your body. Start with your head, then move down to your toes. And lastly, acknowledge your thoughts and emotions. The key here is not to judge your feelings as good or bad and to just accept them as they are.
Good evening, I'm Pia Ontiveros. Welcome to Newsnight, where we go above and beyond the headlines. Tonight on the program, now classified at critical risk for COVID-19, the country's total infections breach 3 million. The Commission on Elections is investigating a supposed data breach in its servers, while aspirants express alarm over the hacking claim. A top series from streaming platform Netflix and an award-winning show from Apple TV Plus will run for more seasons. Nearly 2 years into the global health crisis, the Philippines has surpassed the 3 million mark in COVID-19 cases. The total now is more than 3,026,000, with a little over 28,000 new infections reported today. Active cases hit above 181,000, excluding data from 12 laboratories. The positivity rate is at 44.5%. This is the second highest logged since the pandemic began. Based on the World Health Organization standards, a positivity rate below 5% indicates that virus transmission on the ground is under control. Meanwhile, the disease has also killed 219 more people, while over 4,400 others survived. Health Secretary Francisco Duque says the country is now at critical risk for COVID-19 after seeing a massive 3,600% two-week growth rate and an average daily attack rate of 10.47 per 100,000 people. Metro Manila tops the scale, followed by Calabarzon and Central Luzon. But Duque says despite the rapid rise in infection, critical and severe cases are fewer compared to the Delta variant surge in September. The health department's strategy now shifting as COVID-19 infections substantially rise by the day, with the rate of transmission and the Omicron variant now dominating. The agency says contact tracing and testing just to find the infected are no longer a priority. Instead, the primary function of COVID-19 tests now is to help determine the proper clinical management of high-risk patients.
Contact tracing is not that much prioritized anymore because we know that in each household, the possibility or the likelihood that there is one positive individual is very high. So the contact tracing is not that valued or not that prioritized anymore in this kind of situations. Dahil sa napakataas na transmission ng sakit sa ating mga komunidad, yun pong testing, meron po tayong shift into our policies, kung saan tinitignan po natin na mas importante na po siya ngayon for managing clinically our patients, especially the most vulnerable. Ang priority natin ngayon, matest po natin lahat ng vulnerable para mabigyan ng karampatang lunas.
Health spokesperson Rosario Vergere says there should be a focus on community management and isolation to prevent further spread of the virus. Health experts also advise people to isolate immediately as soon as they see the first signs of COVID-19 infection instead of waiting for a COVID-19 test result. Health workers worry about contributing to the surge in COVID-19 cases as they are now forced to report for work while sick. AC Nichols reports the government defends cutting the isolation period, saying it will not put the health workers and their patients at greater risk.
They're supposed to help treat patients. But at the rate COVID-19 is spreading, a number of medical frontliners fear they themselves may be carriers of the virus. It is becoming a cause of concern as hospitals carry out a health department order cutting short the isolation period for fully vaccinated COVID-19 positive healthcare workers.
Meron na po kami mga doktor, mga nurses at attendant na pumapasok kahit wala pang resulta yung kanilang swab. Minsan, katulad po yung isang doktor namin, nag-duty siya kahit tumatahol-tahol pa rin siya. 2 days pa lang siya naka-out sa hospital, na-confine siya for 6 days. After, pahinga na isang araw, nag-duty na siya. Ngayon, ka-endorse namin siya. Tumatahol pa rin siya pero nag-duty siya.
Government data shows almost 800 healthcare workers are active COVID-19 cases as of January 9. Most, or over 75%, are mild. Philippine General Hospital employees have officially written a letter to management seeking a reconsideration of the policy.
Kung pumasok ka nun, high exposed ka, hindi ka tinest, pumasok ka lang, wala ka nararamdaman. Pero yung pala, nagde-develop na pala yung virus sa katawan mo. So napakadelikado po nito para sa mga health workers at sa mga pasyente.
Jose Reyes Medical Center employee Christy Dongines finds the policy unfair and unsafe. Not only are frontliners forced to work while sick, they are also dealing with a shortage in protective gear. Dongines says they are running low on N95 masks and face shields, and they have been told these are reserved for healthcare workers caring for COVID-19 patients.
Bakit kami po ba, pag pumapasok kami sa hospital, bumibiyahe kami, pagpasok namin sa aming mga hospitals, hindi po ba kami prone, hindi po ba kami high risk para doon, para maka-acquire kami ng COVID?
Health officials, meanwhile, defend the move, saying that the government will not put health workers or patients at greater risk.
Ang reason naman na naging 5 days yan for the, especially for the asymptomatics, is because we believe that on the 5th day, if you're vaccinated, the viral load is very low. You can no longer transmit the virus to, or you are not contagious.
Meron na pong mga ilang bansa na nagpatupad ng ganito rin pong protocol because of contingencies, because of the high transmissibility of the Omicron variant. And we wouldn't want our health systems to be overwhelmed also, and nobody's going to take care of our patients. So ginawa po ito base sa siyensya at ebidensya. Wala pong balak ang ating gobyerno na mapunta sa at risk ang ating mga pasyente at ang ating mga healthcare workers. Ito po ay ginagawa base sa risk assessment ng ating mga ospital kung kakayanin.
The DOH is also studying the possibility of cutting short the quarantine period for those without symptoms and the fully vaccinated among the general public. AC Nichols, CNN Philippines.
A DOH Technical Advisory Group member, Dr. Anna Ong Lim, says the decision to allow shortened quarantine for asymptomatic and fully vaccinated health workers is prompted by the, quote, extreme need for essential workers, unquote. Many hospitals and laboratories have already been short-staffed as more and more health workers get infected. Another member, Dr. Edsel Salvania, clarifying that implementing this is still up to the hospital's infection control unit. He says other hospitals may assign infected health workers to COVID wards as this is less risky. President Duterte wants to increase the government's RT-PCR testing capacity, asking the health department to buy more machines for this. Here's the president in his own words.
We also need to increase the RT-CPR testing capacity in NCR. Plus areas so as to handle the influx of tests and to ensure that laboratories are operational 7 days a week. Ang universal complaint talaga is kulang ang facilities ng itong RT-PCR. We need to buy more, you think, sir?
Yes, our expansion is ongoing because we would want that every province will have an RT-PCR, but also the private sector is building more RT-PCR laboratories. So in all, we have 312 laboratories from 1 to 312.
Sige, magbili ka para makatulong tayo sa marami. Finally, the National Vaccination Operation Center is directed to increase vaccination rates outside NCR as soon as possible.
For now, the health department is asking testing laboratories to put a cap on the number of swabs accepted daily as more health workers in hospitals and testing facilities get infected. An overseas Filipino worker laments how prolonged quarantine restrictions have prevented her from immediately reuniting with a departed loved one. The government admits testing backlogs are some of the reasons many OFWs are stranded. Krista Nadalo has that story.
Here's one grieving mother's last-ditch effort to see her daughter for the last time. Ella Alagos, an overseas Filipino worker from Lebanon, exhausts all means to attend the wake of her 7-year-old princess. Ella tells CNN Philippines that she was able to talk and see Princess through a video call before the kid died on a hospital bed.
Gusto ko po sana makasama yung anak ko. Siyempre kasi masakit para sa akin bilang ina. Kaya sinikap ko kahit mahirap, umuwi ako. Pero yun nga, pagdating ko dito, napakahirap naman. Na ganito na nga yung sitwasyon mo, hindi man lang mabigyan ng favor, hindi man lang mabigyan ng maayos na assistance.
Ella arrived in the country on January 1, but due to stricter quarantine protocols triggered by the Omicron variant, she needed to stay under quarantine for 10 days. But she faces more challenges because after finishing her quarantine, her flight going to the province was cancelled due to the COVID-19 restrictions.
Mahigit 4 years na hindi ako nakauwi dito sa may Pilipinas. Pagbalik ko, ganyan na yung sitwasyon ng anak ko, pero hindi man lang mabigyan ng favor na sa ganitong sitwasyon, walang exemption sa mga ganitong sitwasyon.
Everyday opportunity is lost for Ella to see her daughter and say her last goodbye.
Man lang sa ganitong pagkakataon, sa huling pagkakataon na makasama ko po siya, kahit sa maiksing panahon. Ngayon, kaya pinilit kong umuwi.
The Overseas Workers Welfare Administration or OWA admits that many OFWs are now stranded in quarantine facilities due to testing backlogs and cancellations of flights.
In the critical level, when we hit around 10 to 11,000. Kakayanin pa naman din yun. Kaya lang, ito na talaga yung levels na talagang we will feel the pinch, no, in terms of yung quarantine facilities natin available.
This is also not the first time the agency receives appeal for shortened quarantine from returning OFWs with emergencies and personal concerns.
We, of course, commiserate and empathize, no, with OFWs who have lost a loved one or have a loved one in hospital. However, we have to also understand the overall situation. And we receive about 100 or 150 requests every day, but not all are granted. Only a small percentage are granted by the Bureau of Quarantine, not by OWA.
Krista Nadalo, CNN Philippines.
The government limits the purchase of over-the-counter medicine for fever and flu because of high demand and to prevent hoarding amid the surge in COVID-19 cases. In a joint memorandum issued by the Trade and Health Departments, a person may only buy a maximum of 20 paracetamol tablets and 60 for each household. For liquid paracetamol, an individual can only get up to 5 bottles and 10 for one household. We're showing on your screens other drugs included in the purchase cap. This comes in the wake of temporary stockouts as Metro Manila remains the country's COVID-19 epicenter. The policy will help prevent artificial shortage and price escalation, as well as ensure the availability of the products until supplies become stable. Retailers are directed to advise consumers about the purchase caps by posting notices within their outlets. Up ahead on Newsnight, MRT3 passengers can now get free COVID antigen tests. We show you how. And 6 inmates of the Caloocan City Jail are dead following a riot. Details when we return.
Akala ko conquering the universe was the ultimate, but there's more. Dahil tinawag ko ako ng Panginoon for a major purpose. To guide the youth, help communities, and to bring others closer to Him. Kaya I take care of my health through proper diet, exercise, and MX3 capsule. I am ready to serve. Kasi para sa Panginoon, hindi lang ako 4th runner-up. First place ako sa puso niya.
Mahalagang paalala, ang MX3 capsule ay hindi gamot at hindi dapat gamiting panggamot sa anumang uri ng sakit.
Welcome back to Newsnight, where we go above and beyond the headlines. As coronavirus infections spread relentlessly, one of Metro Manila's biggest rail lines begins testing passengers. Our Rex Media has the details.
If you're taking the MRT regularly, you can volunteer to undergo a free antigen test before buying your ticket. You can also be chosen randomly by MRT personnel, but they will ask for your consent if you're willing to get tested. If not, they won't force you and you can still take the train. But if you say yes, you will be asked to sign consent and contract tracing forms before your swab samples are taken. Medical personnel from the South Superhighway Medical Center will conduct the test. If you test negative, you get a free train ride. If you're positive, you won't be allowed to board the train. Instead, you will be sent home so you can isolate. You will also be asked to coordinate with your local government for proper monitoring and confirmatory RT-PCR tests. The free antigen tests are only available during rush hours, 7 to 9 in the morning and 5 p.m. to 7 in the evening. The tests are conducted at the MRT stations of North Avenue, Cubao, Shaw Boulevard, and Taft Avenue. They will be offered until the end of January, except on weekends. The MRT is reminding the public, while this will give people a chance to be tested for free, always observe minimum health standards at the station, since many MRT personnel and passengers have recently tested positive for the virus. Rex Remitio, CNN Philippines.
Interior Secretary Eduardo Ano orders a high-level investigation into yesterday's Caloocan City Jail riot that left 6 people dead and 33 others injured. Caloocan City Police say a heated argument between members of the Commando and Sputnik gangs triggered the scuffle. They say the investigation will cover security camera video testimonies of jail officers and other witnesses. Twinkle Dargani, an executive of the controversial government supplier Pharmally, has been released from Senate detention for humanitarian reasons. Senate President Tito Soto and Blue Ribbon Committee Chairman Richard Gordon approved Dargani's release Monday night after her mother expressed concern for Dargani's mental health. Majority and minority leaders of the upper chamber concurred with the decision. Soto says Dargani's mother has promised to present her to the Blue Ribbon Committee when needed. Sen President adds Dargani tested positive for COVID-19 but has very mild symptoms. Dargani and her brother Mohit were arrested last November after being cited in contempt for refusing to submit subpoenaed financial documents. The Commission on Elections is investigating allegations of hacking which may have compromised voter data and other information related to the 2022 polls. This after an article by the Manila Bulletin claimed an unidentified group of hackers was able to breach the servers of the COMELEC, downloading more than 60 gigabytes of data. COMELEC spokesperson James Jimenez questions the claim, saying the data still does not exist in the full body systems because the configuration files have not yet been completed. He invited the authors to provide further proof on the allegations. Jimenez did not confirm whether Manila Bulletin reached out to him regarding the incident, as stated in the online report. Some presidential aspirants express alarm over the alleged hacking of COMELEC servers. Senator Ping Lacson says the upper chamber's in-house cybersecurity team is already probing the matter. Senator Manny Pacquiao says Congress should exercise its oversight powers in the automated election law. The camp of former Senator Bongbong Marcos calls on the COMELEC Steering Committee and Joint Congressional Oversight Committee to convene and initiate a probe into the alleged hacking. Vice President Leni Robredo and her running mate, Senator Kiko Pangilinan, are asking the COMELEC to verify whether the hacking did happen and to ensure the integrity of the May polls. Meanwhile, Robredo slams disinformation as social media posts claim her office's Bayanihan e-Consulta program gathers the personal data of patients, including voting precincts. And Pangilinan says he tested negative for COVID-19, adding his positive test results from last weekend turned out to be false. The Food and Drug Administration has granted a compassionate special permit for the COVID-19 treatment drug Paxlovid. It is the first generic version of Pfizer's Paxlovid. FDA officer in charge, Oscar Gutierrez, says the agency has approved the application of the Health Department for the institutional use of the cheaper antiviral pill. Paxlovid may be used for COVID-19 patients aged 12 and above with mild to moderate symptoms. It can reduce risks of hospitalization and deaths by 88 to 89% within 3 to 5 days from the onset of symptoms. Gutierrez says the treatment pill will be distributed through the DOH and government hospitals. Paxlovid was first authorized for use in the United States. Pfizer is expected to apply for emergency use authorization of its antiviral drug in the Philippines by the last week of January. While the Board of Investments has approved the application for registration of Lloyd Laboratories as domestic producer of molnupiravir, an oral therapy for COVID-19 patients. Lloyd Laboratories recently expanded its production facility in Malolos, Bulacan. The project is expected to start this month with an estimated cost of 24 million pesos and annual production of 1,400,000 400 milligram capsules of molnupiravir. Lloyd Laboratories also applied for a certificate of product registration with the FDA to make the drug more widely available. The suggested retail price of the locally made molnupiravir is 65 pesos per pill, much lower than its imported counterpart, which sells around 100 to 150 pesos per pill. A Pfizer vaccine targeting the highly infectious Omicron variant will be ready by March. Pfizer CEO Albert Bourla says they are developing a shot that aims to give better protection against Omicron, as well as severe disease and hospitalization. Bourla is still unsure if the new vaccine will be needed, but says manufacturing has begun just in case. Other companies also developing Omicron-specific vaccines. The new variant also sweeping the United States. Millions of workers like teachers and hospital staff are stuck at home, isolating or quarantining because of Omicron. CNN's Nick Watts tells us this is fueling major disruptions to everyday life and the economy.
In Los Angeles, more than 60,000 school staff and students have tested positive in the run-up to reopening. In New York, trash lies uncollected, 3 subway lines are closed, so many city staff are out sick. Across Colorado, so many EMTs are out, they're now turning away some non-urgent callers. Upwards of 5 million Americans will be stuck at home over the coming days, says one economist, all down to the Omicron tsunami. Nearly a quarter of American hospitals are now reporting a critical staff shortage, with nearly 140,000 patients in those hospitals fighting COVID-19.
Much of our hospital workforce is getting knocked out at home with symptomatic COVID.
Some overwhelmed testing labs now forced to prioritize results just for the symptomatic.
Diagnostic testing is in shambles. And so when you add up all of that together, we've got a very serious situation facing our nation this month.
This country is now averaging a stunning 700,000 plus new COVID-19 infections every day, an all-time high and still rising. Thousands of schools didn't open last week after winter break due to COVID.
There was a staff shortage that led to the closure.
Others closed to slow the spread. Elsewhere, strikes because teachers want more safety measures.
I agree that the best learning happens in schools, but I don't feel safe at work right now.
One North Carolina district now telling some high schoolers to ride city buses because they're out of drivers for the yellow ones. Meantime, city bus services slashed in the likes of Washington, D.C. and Portland, Oregon. Cruises also being cancelled, and more than 25,000 flights cancelled since Christmas due to weather and Omicron. How long might all this last? Well, Alaska Airlines has cut 10% of its flights through the end of January.
It'll soon become easier to test for COVID-19 in the U.S. Beginning Saturday, private health insurers will be required to cover at-home tests, even without a doctor's order or prescription. Up next on Newsnight, it looks like fans of Emily in Paris can look forward to more of the show's romance and adventure with new seasons confirmed. Details after the break.
We're back.
Hell yeah!
I take it very, very seriously. This week on Hollywood Express. F9 is already a record breaker.
It's very humbling to watch them and be able to take advice from them.
A magical reunion is in the works.
Many of us have used the holidays as an excuse to indulge and feast on our favorite meals. But if you're looking to lose that holiday weight, there's no better time than to start now.
Kapag sumusobra po ang inyong carbohydrates, that can turn into fat.
We need fat as a source of energy as well, especially during times that we're fasting or doing prolonged exercise.
On MedTalk Health Talk, we'll talk about how your body uses fat for fuel and how to better utilize it as energy.
Welcome back to CNN Philippines. The story will continue to unfold for some streaming platform favorites. Netflix's Emily in Paris was renewed for not one, but 2 more seasons. The Emmy-nominated romantic comedy series' first 2 seasons both debuted on the streaming giant's global top 10 list. And good news from the morning show as well, which announced the 3rd season is coming. The Apple TV Plus drama stars Jennifer Aniston and Reese Witherspoon. And more entertainment news, from a British movie icon's items going up for sale to where you can watch some of the latest animated films. CNN's David Daniel has the details on the Hollywood Minute.
It's an extraordinary evening.
Michael Caine is putting some of his film memorabilia and other items up for auction. Paintings from his personal collection, his gold Rolex watch, and even a pair of his signature eyeglasses are set to go under the hammer March 2nd in London. The UK's Times newspaper says the 88-year-old actor and his wife are downsizing, thus the sale.
We are pleased to welcome Milo Ventimiglia to the Hollywood Walk of Fame.
This Is Us star Milo Ventimiglia is the latest honoree on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. The actor was inducted Monday in a ceremony on Hollywood Boulevard. Ventimiglia's star is next to that of his This Is Us wife, Mandy Moore.
I'll give you 3 weeks to get this show up and running.
It appears families with young children are staying away from theaters amid the Omicron variant surge. At least that's what studios seem to think. Sing 2 landed on premium VOD just 17 days after it opened in theaters. And Pixar's Turning Red won't get a U.S. theatrical release at all, debuting instead March 11th on Disney+. Staying home in Hollywood, I'm David Daniel.
And before we go, we remind everyone to keep practicing health protocols. Let's stop COVID-19 cases from further rising by washing our hands, practicing social distancing, and keeping our masks on. Get your vaccines and booster shots if you haven't already, and isolate immediately if you experience any symptoms. And that is it for now. Join me again on Politics as usual at 8:30 p.m. I'm Pia Ontiveros for Newsnight, where we go above and beyond the headlines.
Let's go straight to the sources of the story. We have presidential aspirant and Manila Mayor Isko Moreno and his vice presidential running mate, Dr. Willie Ong. Yorme. Dr. Willie, magandang umaga po sa inyong dalawa and welcome to the source.
Thank you, Pinky. Maraming salamat sa iyo at sa iyong mga staff dyan sa CNN. At kay partner Doc, Willie, good morning.
Good morning po. Yorme.
Okay. Okay, umpisahan na po natin kay Mayor Isko. Yorme, malakas naman po talaga yung ugong-ugong, natatakbo kayo bilang Pangulo. And for the most part, sinasabi nyo na trabaho muna ang kailangan yung gawin, ano? I'm sure there are a number of reasons that push you to run. But if I were to ask you, ano ho yung top 3 reasons or things or circumstances that actually pushed you to run? And a follow-up question on that was, why was the declaration made yesterday? Dahil marami pong nagulat.
Okay. Thank you. Una, siyempre, alam mo, kung sarili ko lang ang iisipin ko, dito na lang sa Maynila, and we'll see the countries like, having so much trouble and challenges ng mga tao. Para bang nakakaawa naman na panoorin ko na lang yung laban. Nakakalumo talaga ang tunay na sitwasyon sa baba. No? But be that as it may, this is democracy. I thought, okay, sige, we'll offer something for our people. Different things like, bilisan natin ng kilos and all other things. And fortunately, at salamat naman sa mga weeks of inikayat natin si Doc na maging bahagi ng plano natin to really address our COVID situation in the country so that we can focus more on our economic recovery. Like in Manila, na partner ko, Doktor, at so far naman, sa awa ng Diyos, matagumpay naman yung partnership ng mayor at vice mayor na doktora. So sabi natin, tingnan natin niya yung si Doc Willie. Kasi nakikita ko si Doc Willie na mukhang may puso to sa tao on his own. On his own, kumikilos siya at hindi rin siya nagpapapigil. Kaya yun ang naisip namin. Sige, at salamat naman, umuo si Doc Willie. Alam ko marami rin nagkumbinsi sa kanya na tumakbong senador. Isa na nga rin ako doon. But we opted, diinan na natin to. Ipakita natin sa tao yung layunin natin, bakit tayo sasali sa halalan. Yung layunin na ang partner natin can continue to address the current situation with regard to health issue. So that most of our time will be dedicated in addressing future jobs for our people, certainty with our policies, and so on and so forth. So these are the things that the reason bakit kami nakipag-apply, kasama kaming aplikante sa mamamayan para sa pagpanguluhan at Vice Presidente.
Yorme, although meron pong sumusuporta, of course, sa inyo, meron din ho kasing nagsasabi na kaka-mayor lang, Pangulo na kaagad. Hindi man lang nag-senador, hindi man lang nag-vice president, diretso sa pagkapangulo. What do you say to those people who are saying na tila nagmamadali naman ata kayo?
Well, that's a good point. I respect that opinion. But let me refresh your memories that I've been serving the city and the government for 23 years of my life. I'm 46 years old. Half of my life was dedicated to public service. Second, remember, marami rin namang mga taong nahalal, no? Nahalal na mga, by yung siguro nature or destiny. In the likes of Sumalangit Nawa, si Tita Cory, no? Si Tita Cory, nahalal ng tao, naupo ng tao, kahit na siya ay plain housewife, wala rin siyang experience because yung trust ng tao. Kasi yun naman ang importante muna, yung tiwala sa iyo yung tao. At marami rin nahalal ng mga senador. Pinky, marami rin nahalal ng senador. Wala ring public office or they are in a different agency for a short period of time, then they got elected. So, to cut the long story short, as far as I am concerned, I've been serving the public half of my life. No, I think that thing speaks for itself. Second, modesty aside, pinagsikapan naman namin na yung kalugmukan ng Maynila sa mahabang panahon, naitaguyod naman natin, naibalik ulit natin yung tanyag ng pagiging kapitolyo ng bansa. In fact, we became competitive in the world, like in the Bloomberg philanthropy. Out of 263 cities in the world, we became top 50 finalists in that competition.
Yeah.
And including the national agencies of our country. Nung last year, despite the pandemic, binigyan naman tayo ng pagkilala. And in mga sertifikasyon ng pagpapatakbo ng gobyerno ng maayos, ng iba pang ahensya ng gobyerno. So in a short period of time, despite the pandemic, nagtuloy-tuloy ang buhay at pamamahala sa lungsod ng Maynila. And these are the things that we need, going against this pandemic na talagang mananatili pa sa atin hanggang 2022.
All right. So let me shift to Dr. Williong. Dr. Ong, again, magandang umaga po sa inyo. Napansin ko po kahapon, tila wala kayong prepared speech. Ano po? May kinuha lang kayo sa parang polo nyo na maliit na papel. Some of the stuff that I remember na sinabi nyo po, wala talaga po ito sa inyong plano. And a lot will agree that this came from left field. Nagulat talaga yung mga tao na ikaw ang vice presidential bet ni Mayor Isko, no? Pero dalawa po yung sinabi nyo that struck sa akin. Sabi nyo po, maraming coincidence, at yung pangalawa, sabi nyo, may kutob kayo kay Yorme. Ano ho ba talaga yung kutob nyo kay Mayor Isko? At nagdesisyon kayong sumabak at tumakbo bilang Vice President?
Yes, talagang pinagdasal ko maigi, tinitingnan ko siya maigi kasi marami na ako nami-meet na mga politiko doon sa mga experience ko sa 2019. Gusto ko makita kung talagang mabibigay niya, magagawa ba niya to, at pinagdasal ko maigi. Tapos nung nakita ko, right now I'm very confident he can do it. When I see him, I feel confident. Nakikita ko maganda yung partnership namin. Sinibigay niya sa akin na alagaan itong health sector, kung anong magandang bakuna ibibigay sa kababayan natin, kung ano yung mga susunod na second generation vaccine, kasi pipili tayo niya. Ano isasaksak sa ating katawan, pati sa mga anak natin. Papaaralin na ba natin sa school o hindi pa? Anong gamot ang ibibigay? Napakahalaga nito. Kung ano meron sa mayayamang bansa, sa Amerika, sa Europa, kawawa naman yung kababayan natin kung hindi natin ibibigay ito. Nakita ko nagagawa niya sa Maynila. And he's really very serious in studying lahat itong mga health problems. Pero kung matutulungan ko siya, sabi ko nga, okay naman ako kung sa Senado, pag-iisipan ko. Pero kung saan niya ako gusto ilagay, susunod lang ako.
Okay, pag-usapan po natin yung popularity. Sabi ni Mayor Isko, I'm neither the son or the daughter of a president. Ang dagdag nyo pa, walang mga avenues named after your family, kahit waiting shed. Sabi nyo nga, wala. Iisa lang yung pangalan na Domagoso. While you may seem popular, Yorme, sa Metro Manila, maybe sa Calabarzon, paano ho ninyo siguro i-introduce yung sarili ninyo sa mga taong posibleng hindi talaga kayo kilala sa mga liblib na lugar? Ang City of Manila ho ba ang magiging showcase ninyo para mapakilala kayo sa mga taong hindi kayo kilala?
Well, what happened to Manila is just one thing. No? Siyempre gusto ko rin ma-meet, makilala ako ng mga tao doon sa bundok ng Tralala, sa talagang sulok ng bansa. And we have that kind of commitment that we will go to them and try to be reasonable and express our intention, state our intention to the far-flung areas of our country. And I hope I will be given a chance. But then again, Pinky, hindi naman to Mr. and Mrs. Congeniality competition. Hindi naman to Mr. and Mrs. Universe. This is about the lives of our people. And history or things that you have done in the past, or even records of what you have done, is an asset also that can be shared to every Filipino. Yun naman ang akin, ipagtatapat ko naman kung ano yung nagawa sa Maynila at ano yung mga pangarap natin at yung karakter natin, because tingin ko nowadays yung values ng isang kandidato at saka yung kanyang mga karanasan isa sa mga pwedeng maibenta sa ating mga mamamayan bilang aplikante. When you try to apply for a job, di ba? Tinitingnan yung experience mo, tinitingnan na pati mga yung educational background mo, tinitingnan nyo, sinisiyasat yun. Or tinitingnan din nila, who are you as a person? So meron kang experience, medyo sana pumasa ako sa academic background na requirements nila. Tapos yung point of use, that's very important because it's going to be a policy. Remember, we all know that halos lahat ng lumalabas sa bibig ng leader, it became a policy. So that is very important in job interview, during the job interview. Ayun naman ang gagawin naman natin. And I hope my fellow Visayan, by blood, Pinky, I am 100 Bisaya. Hindi mo lang makikita sa akin, at hindi ko naman yan ikinubli, but my father is from Panay Island, Antique. My mother is from Samar. Sila ay mga biktima ng neglect ng nakaraan. Katulad din ng mga ibang kababayan natin sa probinsya. Kasi kung naging mabuti ang pamahalaan sa kanila nung araw, ay hindi sila pupunta sa Maynila para mag-squatter at magbakasakali. So I am the product of that. And it's very clear of the connection. So if we can make it better there, in the provinces, in the far-flung areas, sa mga bundok ng Tralala, wala nang pupunta sa Maynila at para magbakasakali at mag-squatter dito na mas mahirap ang buhay. So if we can send that kind of message and hope, or at least put into action, no? Hindi lang yung bang lip service, then I think there will be an equal opportunity anywhere in the country in the coming future.
And speaking of popularity, I also want to ask Dr. Willie Ong. He's very popular on Facebook. You have 16 million followers. Sa YouTube ho ata 6.5 million ang iyong followers. However, tumakbo ho kayo in 2019 and obviously, while you made it to number 18, obviously hindi po kayo nanalo. How do you plan, siguro sir, Dr. Ong, to translate this popularity on social media? How do you plan to translate that into votes in 2022?
Siyempre, I'll just be myself. Gagawin natin yung kaya natin, and I'll be joining Mayor Isko sa mga pupuntahan niya, sa mga interviews niya. And I learned a lot in 2019. I learned a lot about politics, the good points, the bad points, and maraming lessons doon are very important. And I'll be taking those for 2020.
Kailan ho kayo mag-officially resign sa Lakas CMD, sir?
I think they have talked already with Lakas CMD. Actually, I wanted to stay in Lakas CMD, but I'm not sure what is the process there. So if I have to resign, I will join Mayor Isko's party.
All right, we need to take a very short break. The Source will be right back. And you're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. I'm Pinky Webb. Our guest today, Manila Mayor Isko Moreno and Dr. Willie Ong. Just very briefly, I want to touch on this to both gentlemen. Really, the choice of Mayor Isko was Senator Grace Poe. Sabi na po ni Mr. Lito Banayo, you tried and tried, but in the end, she said no. I wanted to ask you both, do you think this is divine intervention or maybe even destiny that because humindi po si Senator Grace Poe, ay kayo po, Mayor, naghanap ho kayo ng ibang partner. Because if it was Senator Grace Poe, obviously, hindi po top of mind yung isang tao, vice presidential bet na mangunguna sa COVID response ng gobyerno sakaling manalo kayo.
Alam mo, ang maganda nga minsan, alam mo, yung sinasabi ko lagi, ang mga pagsubok sa buhay teaches you lessons. And from the lessons, you will learn. Ang maganda naman, pag nadapa ka, bumangon ka agad. And these are the things that we need in the coming days, months, and weeks, and years of our lives dealing with pandemic. Tama yung sinabi mo. Alam mo, sinabi ko rin yung kaila Doc Willie noon. Sabi ko, siguro talagang sinasadya ng tadhana, no? Na from with all the challenges, no, dealings with some leaders of our country, then here we are. Pinaglinaw ang isip natin. No, why not? Then we analyze it. What are the challenges of coming days? And science will agree with us that pandemic or COVID-19 will stay. So, tingnan natin. We offer something. And I agree with you. I do believe in God. Naniniwala ako kay Jesus, no? Kay Mama Mary. Baka nga mamaya, hulog ng langit itong sitwasyon namin ni Doc Willie to really offer something different. And the thing speaks for itself. No? Doktor, Vice President, tapos Presidente, may karanasan, no? May managerial skills, no? At battle, modesty aside, I think Dr. Willie and I are battle-tested in the COVID situation in our country, in his own world, in our world, here in Manila. Kaya I would think that way, that maybe God intervened. Hopefully, I'm not using God in this conversation, but sa'yo na rin naman ang galing, maybe nga, may awahan Diyos.
Si Dr. Ong, I'm going to change the question naman. Meron ho kasing si political analyst, si Dean Tony Lavinia. Ang sabi po niya, stroke of genius daw itong partnership na to. I believe he was the one that said that because bago, out of the box, kumbaga nga. Kayo ho ba confident? That's what I want to know. Are you confident with such a team up that this will actually change people's perspective na nakasanayan na ang binoboto ho talaga mga politiko na presidente at vice president. This is obviously, again, to use the term out of the box, are you confident that this will allow people to gravitate towards Isko Moreno and Dr. Willie Ong tandem?
For me, Pinky? Yes, ang focus ko lang, Pinky, talaga, if Mayor Isko wins for the next 6 years, ano magagawa natin? Specifically sa health sector. So iniisip ko na kung anong gagawin, ano yung COVID response natin for health workers, hospitals, medicines, vaccines, especially yung trust ng people, yung pronouncement. Like for now, mababa yung vaccination rate natin. So iniisip ko na anong magagawa natin in 6 years, maybe a new infectious disease hospital, we need a Center for Disease Control para dito sa atin. So very neglected na yung health sector. After the health sector, we are studying the whole program of government. 5 hours na kami nag-aaral nito. Bilis kilo. So, we're really studying and ready for anything.
Doc Willie, I will follow up na dahil napaka-importante yung mga sinasabi niyo. For example, Philippine Genome Center, hindi ho ba, nasa Luzon, kailangan natin sa Visayas and Mindanao. They were asking for 100 million peso budget, 50 million in Visayas, 50 million in Mindanao. RITM, pinag-usapan na rin po, you mentioned that, mga hospital, nurses, etc. But very important, yung sinabi niyong vaccine. Sabi niyo, ituturo ko sa inyo yung pinakamabisang bakuna. Ano ho ba para sa inyo ang pinakamabisang bakuna ngayon?
Ang pinakamabisang bakuna, yung darating na bakuna, yung second generation vaccines, yung may panlaban sa Delta variant. Diba? Yung ngayon, pag-iisipan natin, booster, no booster. I'm just saying, we will get the best science, na tingin namin, we will get the best experts, kilala ko to, and we will decide based on ano ibibigay ko sa pamilya ko. Diba? Not based on other factors. Alam niyo na naman anong other factors Kailangan doktor ang magli-lead nitong COVID response.
But isn't that also, do you see the challenges of that being such a tall order because of the inequity, yung kulang po ng mga bakuna sa mga nagtatanong bakit madaming Sinovac? Dahil Sinovac po, ang milyon-milyon na nagdala ng bakuna dito. Some of course favor Pfizer, maybe even Moderna, but it seems the problem is the lack of supply. How will you be able to, even as a doctor, nasabihin po natin for the sake of argument, sabihin na mas mabisa ho talaga ang Pfizer, kunwari lang po or Moderna, pero dahil po may kakulangan ng bakuna, baka hindi din po talaga mapunta sa bansa yung mga the best, kunwari po, na bakuna. How do you intend to solve that?
Yes, tama po. It's very possible na hindi tayo mabibigyan nito mga best vaccines, pero it will not be from lack of effort. Talagang tututukan ni Mayor yan. Ngayon pa lang, intention to order na tayo. Kung dito lalabas, siyempre pupusta na tayo o order na tayo dito. Depending paglabas ng stats, o order na tayo dito. So based on what is best for our people, we will do our best. Okay lang naman sa tao, we try to get this medicine, pero it's not available. So ito na lang. Pero yung masakit, yung hindi mo sure kung kinuha pa, hindi ba kinuha. So yung trust pag nawala yung trust ng mga public at doon sa mga doctors na maggagamot sa kanila, mawawala. Pag nawala yung trust, hindi gagaling yung pasyente. Magugulo lang tayo. So maybe I can offer that. Having said that, I'm not saying anything against the government. They are doing their best. Maybe we will just do it different. Ibang style ni Yorme, iba rin naman ang style natin para pagsasama. Maganda po teamwork namin.
Yeah, just a follow-up, when sinabi niyo po during your speech yesterday na nakita niyo po yung mga healthcare workers natin umiiyak, plain and simple, sakali pong manalo si Mayor, manalo po kayo, alam naman po natin yung problema ngayon, yung current problem. Mababa po ang sahod, hindi po nila nakukuha yung kanilang mga benefits. Is there a commitment from you, dahil nga para kayo ho ang mangunguna ng health issue natin From you, number 1, tataasan ang sweldo ng mga healthcare workers, at number 2, siguradong mabibigay po yung kanilang mga benepisyo.
Sigurado bibigay ni Yorme yan at hindi lang yan. Siyempre, gusto natin libreng dialysis, di ba, sa mga hospital, as much as we can. We're not promising anything 6 months, 12 months. Kung ano yung kaya, ano makukuha natin na pera, talaga ibibigay natin yan. Especially the medicines sa mga primary care, sa mga health centers. Siyempre, dapat puno ng gamot. Hindi naman pwede patingi-tingi sa mga kababayan natin. So, focus namin ni Yorme, which is very similar, yung aabot on the ground. We don't want PowerPoint presentation, magre-relax lang dito, tapos na gusto natin maramdaman ng tao na sila mismo matutuwa at magpapasalamat sa atin, sasabihin, ay tama pala siya ang pinili ko.
We need to take a very short break. The Source will be right back. Well, you're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. I'm Pinky Webb. We're going to have to say goodbye now on television. The Source is really just 30 minutes long, Mayor and Dr. Willie Ong. So we're going to say goodbye on television. Pagpapatuloy po natin to sa Facebook. So thank you for joining us here on The Source. I'm Pinky Webb. You're watching CNN Philippines.